Welcome, everybody, and thank you for joining us today for this edition of the IP Watchdog webinar series. Today, we're going to talk about the economics of AI in patent practice, and specifically, we're going to talk about the question that clients are raising, that law firms are having to deal with. Who is it that's going to capture the value? It's coming up in conversations about billing. It's coming up in conversations whether it's flat fee billing or whether it's across the board savings. Some clients are asking for. AI is a wonderful, wonderful tool, and people are now we're past the point of should we be using it? Yes, you should be using it. Clients are now past the point where they first started, where they didn't want us to use it at all because of fears of confidentiality. Now they're embracing that and demanding we use it, and they're wanting savings, and so this is the conversation that everybody's having, and I'm looking forward to having this with you here today. So without any further ado, Renee, why don't I kick it over to you to introduce our panel?
Sounds good. Thank you, Jean. On our panel today, we have Ryan Phelan. He is a registered patent attorney at Marshall, Gerstein, and Boren, where he helps clients align IP strategy with core business objectives. With a background in computer science, engineering, and an MBA from Northwestern Kellogg School, Ryan advises startups and Fortune 500 companies on building and protecting patent portfolios across cutting-edge areas like AI, software, and medical devices. He also teaches patenting software inventions at Northwestern Law and is widely recognized for his thought leadership on AI and IP. Next, we have Eli Mazur. He is of counsel at Foley Lardner and a go-to advisor for companies facing complex, high-stakes patent challenges. He focuses on patent transactions, global portfolio strategy, and navigating patent eligibility, especially for software, AI, and fintech innovations. Known for his data-driven approach, Eli helps clients secure strong business-aligned patents while avoiding costly pitfalls. He's also the creator of the widely followed IP podcast Clause 8 and a frequent voice on patent policy and USPTO developments. Next, we have Brian McWhorter. He is a partner at Knoby Martins, where he focuses on patent procurement and dispute resolution for companies in software and telecommunications and consumer products. He works closely with business leaders to develop patent strategies, manage risk, and navigate everything from application drafting to USPTO appeals and licensing negotiations. Brian's experience spans a wide range of technologies from iCloud computing and machine learning to food and beverage innovation, bringing a practical, business-focused lens to IP. Next, we have FX Leduc. He is an accomplished entrepreneur and the CEO of DeepIP, an AI-powered patent assistant transforming how IP professionals work. With more than a decade of experience building and scaling tech companies, he collaborates globally with law firms and corporations to integrate AI into everyday IP workflows. And last but not least, we have Gene Quinn. He's a patent attorney and a longtime thought leader in the IP world. He launched IPWatchdog in 1999, which has grown into one of the most trusted voices in patent law and innovation policy. He is widely recognized for his expertise in software patentability and U.S. patent procedure, and he's been repeatedly honored as one of the top IP influencers in the global IP community. So you are in great hands with this panel. Back to you, Gene.
Great. Thanks a lot, Renee. And again, thank you all for joining us and spending a portion of your day for this very important conversation. To get things started, I always like to go around the horn and get the panelists involved early and then often thereafter. And we can go, I think I remember the order in which Renee introduced you. So, well, actually, why don't we'll give FX the first crack for his big picture. Ryan, will go to you next. FX, thanks for being here. And where do you want the audience to focus as we start to have this conversation today?
Thank you, Jean and René, for having us today. I think my take today is that I think there is no winner and losers in the game. It's a fundamental revolution that impacts everything: organizations, operating models, cost structure, margin structure, billing models. And I think that, every revolution, there is an amazing opportunity for the one who embrace it. And I think what is super important, there is no space. Obviously, there is no space not to go. and there is no space for half measure. And what is difficult here is really to embrace it deeply and to rethink the entire model to adjust to the new operating model with AI incorporated in everything to gain efficiency across the line and smarter decisions.
Excellent. Great. Thanks, FX. Ryan next with Brian on deck. So, Ryan, where do you start today with your preliminary thoughts?
Yeah, thank you, Gene. Thank you, FX, for that. And just sticking with the theme for bottlenecks, my practice is primarily in patent prosecution, so I'm seeing an interesting bottleneck occur with the use of AI tools. Obviously, there's many different AI tools out there for helping with the prep and pros pipeline. And one of the bottlenecks that I'm seeing is an interesting change in the way that I work with clients as outside counsel. We typically provide an invention disclosure form, and that the engineers or the inventors provide the information, and we take that and use that to develop claims and go from there to prepare the patent application. There's been a shift though with AI tools, and not necessarily the tools that you use to draft patent applications, but the inventors and engineers are starting to use those tools to generate content for the invention disclosure itself. And what I have seen, what a bottleneck has been is in the past, we get very little invention disclosure. Obviously, engineers and inventors are very busy people, and they don't have a lot of time, in my experience, to prepare robust invention disclosures. But now with these AI tools, whether it be ChatGPT, Cloud, or whatnot, we get incredibly robust invention disclosures, obviously generated by AI, and it's created a bottleneck in the form of trying to find the needle in the haystack, so to speak, with respect to what the true invention is. And having that conversation, I think, is important. Again, as outside counsel, I'm always very conscious of, giving time back to the inventors or engineers. We don't want to take them away from the company or the client because they are valuable resources. And so trying to deal with that bottleneck with the large influx of information that AI can generate for a disclosure is one of the things that we're tackling.
Great. Thanks a lot, Ryan. And we do have a poll question posted now. Most of you have seen it about bottlenecks. If you could take a moment to answer that, that'd be great. We'll go over that here in a minute. But Brian, your initial thoughts for the audience.
Yeah, thanks, Gene. So, I love the way this webinar was framed, this question of who captures value, because fundamentally I am a contrarian at heart, and I want to push back against the whole framing. I've practiced in the patent space since the early 2010s, just before the start of the modern ML AI revolution. And having worked in-house at large tech companies, having been a partner at a large firm, and now seeing AI spread through every aspect of our world, I'm an AI optimist. I think that AI will supplement, not replace lawyers. I think it will reduce costs. I think it will increase profits. I think it will grow the pie for everyone. I don't think we need to see this adversarially. I think that the interests of companies and lawyers and inventors are fundamentally aligned. I think that this whole revolution that we're seeing will increase patent filings and increase value for everyone. And so the interesting part here is the part of the conversation about what actually has to be true for those efficiencies to materialize and for the market to distribute them. I don't think it's as simple as how many hours are saved drafting an application. I think there's many complications that we're seeing both in-house and on the firm side that mean rolling out AI is more complicated. And so I'm looking forward to talking about those complications today and finding a way that we can move forward and creating a better world for everyone.
Excellent. Great. Thanks, Brian. And batting cleanup is the voice of IP. Eli, what are your thoughts here today?
Thanks, Gene, and thanks to IPWatchdog and DeepIP for hosting this interesting discussion. I guess, I kind of agree with what FX said. I think it's hopefully a win-win for everybody. And I guess I'd like to start out by saying that I think the biggest decrease in fees for outside counsel for patent preparation prosecution actually happened after the Great Recession. and there was no technological leap. So obviously, this might be an opportunity, but I think where if you're in-house counsel, where you have to start with this question is thinking like, what is your overall objective? If your overall objective is to decrease your costs as much as possible, then I think this is a good opportunity for that. Because you'll always find attorneys who I guess will, take the lower fees and figure out how to do that. And you'll find attorneys also who kind of say, I could offer a lower fee and I'll figure out how to do it later. So I think that's the thing. But so I guess my recommendation is figure out why are you obtaining these patents in the first place? And that's when you should have an honest discussion with your outside counsel about how are they actually using the AI? What is the impact actually on their work? Is it saving them time? On what projects is it saving and so forth? So I think at the end of the day, if we can find a more efficient way to draft patent applications using AI, can the time be used to improve the patent applications in other ways? Can the AI be used to draft better applications and so forth? Those are discussions, but I think you have to figure out first, like, what are the goals of obtaining those patents that you're obtaining, and then have that honest conversation between in-house and outside counsel about how the AI is actually being used.
Great. Well, thank you all. I'll post the results here from our little quick survey here, and not surprisingly, perhaps it says patent prosecution and preparation is the major bottleneck. I'll just give you very quickly my initial thoughts. I think that it will unfold throughout the hour that we have with you here today. I think the question of value, the phrasing of the question is very interesting. Value can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And like Eli said, if what you want to do is you want to pay less, you're going to be able to pay less, no doubt about it. But let's not confuse paying less with getting the same or better quality. And let's not confuse it by saying, if you want to say, and I said this facetiously during our prep call, if you want to save 80%, you want an 80% cut on all your rates, there'll be an attorney out there that will do that for you. But that means you're going to get 80% less time. And the real interesting thing about AI is AI, I think, can make everybody who really uses it and is good at using it extremely much better, is what I want to say. The quality is going to be extremely high. So the value from that perspective, what you're paying today, if you continue to pay that tomorrow for people who are familiar using AI, your quality is going to go off the charts. So that's a critical question. I'm glad Eli raised that. Why do you want these things in the first place? So there's a lot to unpack here as we move forward. And I know, FX, you've prepared a little bit of a presentation to kind of wet everyone's whistle a little bit to get us going here. So I'll turn it over to you to go through the few slides that you have prepared. Then we'll go around and have all the panelists comment at the back end. So take it away, FX.
Thank you, Gene. I think reflecting with what you just shared, we all shared, we are building software. We see our mission as a facilitator. We believe that the AI is transforming deeply the entire field. It's an amazing opportunity for the one that will take it. And as a vendor, as a software developer, as an entrepreneur, our vision is to be a facilitator. So basically, to build the technological infrastructure that leverage the most AI and other technologies integrated into the different workflows where you do the work today, and bringing the technology where you work, deeply embedded and deeply reflecting your work. And so DeepIP is 3 years old. We started with a very narrow focus on drafting, then prosecution, and today we expanded across the broader life cycle. We have 2 offices, 60 people. We raised over 40 million in the last 12 months. We have thousands of users a bit everywhere in the world, even if the US is by far our largest market. And we mainly offer two major bundle of value propositions, one around drafting and prosecution and one around opinion work with different modules. The idea is to provide a very modular, very deep and narrow focus capabilities to help at every step of the workflow. So we have thousands of clients in 20 jurisdictions over the 5 continents. We cannot name a lot of large names, but just to give you an idea, we work with half of the top 50 largest law firms in the US. And we work with some of the largest corporates as well, Philips, Dexcom, ASML, to cite a few ones. What makes DeepIP unique in this space is the level of security we provide to our clients, so the highest level of security, the way we build extremely simple tools, because we believe that the success is not to build tools, the success is to have these tools used by people who are not necessarily tech savvy and at ease with the technology. So making it simple, embedding it deeply where you work. So I think we are still the only one in the world to have an assistant embedded into Word, and we know that it helps users to adopt 20% much faster and to use 40% more these tools. Extremely reliable, so being able to cite every single source of information it leverage at the different steps of the workflow. And I think designed to support collaboration, because these tools were very narrow initially. And as we cover the larger portfolio, as we work with both corporations and law firms, designing a tool which is a facilitator, we need to support collaboration within your team, within your company, and across the space, bridging the gap between corporations and law firm, facilitating alignments across your work. That's it on me, Jean. I give you back the mic.
Okay, great, thanks. So, guys, any thoughts on this? Maybe Eli, we'll start with you this time and give you the first opportunity to comment on any of this or what comes to mind, perhaps.
Yeah, and this is not my original thought, but I guess a colleague of mine, Najeng, shared this with me. The coolest thing for patent prosecutors with all these AI tools is that most of our work is individual, like we draft our own applications, we draft our own responses. We rarely sit down and kind of have a long discussion unless it's some like special circumstance. But with AI, you actually have a team. You have a team on working whatever project you have. And I saw you have a tool for continuations, for example. And as a team, you can discuss like what are the possible continuations that we can file for this application. And some of the ideas you might not like or you might not like, and you can have that kind of a dialogue with the AI as you're kind of working through it, and you don't have to worry about bothering somebody 10 times if you want to, if something occurs to you. So I think that's kind of a really cool opportunity with AI, and I think it's kind of at least makes me excited about kind of this practice going forward.
Great. Brian, your thoughts.
Yeah. So first, I just want to say I love DeepIP. I use it all the time. So thank you, FX, for walking through it. I think that it highlights a particular pain point that I have. A lot of times prosecutors, as Eli mentioned, we're working individually. We're focused on what we can do to improve our day-to-day. But when you zoom out at the firm level and you manage a team of attorneys that handle portfolios across thousands of patents, what really matters is how you can integrate the tool into those workflows. So at scale, you don't buy AI, you build institutional capability. And so things like incorporating into Word, which may incorporate into a document management system, finding ways that we can take these tools and expand them to teams and make them intuitive is a really big part of successful AI adoption. We're seeing a lot of frontier tools that are being pushed by coding, right? So Claude Code is currently the thing that everyone's talking about. That's really directed to developers. And while individual attorneys like me that have computer science background may be comfortable with that, I can't deploy that to a team of 30 or 40 or 50 associates, let alone staff at a law firm. So I think it's places like DeepIP that are taking those broader innovations and putting them in a package that's consumable, that's really going to drive forward a lot of efficiency here.
I would agree with that too, and having at times written code myself and done an awful lot, even just like, for example, with the IPWatchdog website over the years, you start doing this on your own and you are chasing technology, in ways that you think, oh, it works now, it's great, but yeah, the interoperability and somebody updates that and it doesn't work with this anymore. And I mean, your day job is getting people patents or litigating patents or did whatever it is. It's not writing code anymore. Once upon a time it was. So I do think you got to be very careful before you start going down this path and expecting that, your paralegals and secretaries and people who are even in the patent space who are life science folks, PhD in life science, they may or may not have any real experience writing code or that sort of thing. So great point, Brian. Ryan, your thoughts on any of this so far?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Gene. Thank you to my fellow panelists. Yeah, just to segue from that, in my previous life, I was a consultant at Accenture and also wrote code. And I still keep in touch with my software-oriented colleagues. And what they're telling me on the software side is, hey, Ryan, we're now coding things faster than ever. And this whatever AI platform I'm using, whether it's Codeplex or Claude's, this is kind of at the level of a junior coder. But Gene, to your point, there's still a lot of integration issues that need to be solved. We kind of call it like the last mile issue of you got a lot of code being generated, but what do you do with it? How do you stick it together? I think that translates well going into the patent world. You have a lot of tools that can do a lot of different things, and you got to be careful in that last mile on what comes out of the tool and what you do with it. I mean, for my firm and myself, we've demoed probably over 40 tools, and they're all great in their own way, or most of them are great in their own way, I should say. But it's interesting because you're going to have different concerns and needs across the spectrum with respect to clients. We talked earlier before about some clients wanting to reduce costs. Others are more focused on quality. And in fact, even outside the client discussion, I've spoken with in-house counsel and outside, and there's always this dichotomy between I want better quality, the costs are not as important, or sometimes it is costs that are important. Maybe there's a one-off invention that an engineer has and that the company doesn't believe that is going to be that valuable. They're kind of on the fence about filing it, and then it's discussion about can we just file this at a lower cost? And so I think law firms such as mine will develop a tiered list of how much do you want us to use AI, and at what cost, or how much effort do you want us to put into this? Like how much sections do you want us to draft? Or is this an application that should be drafted with sufficient disclosure to allow for continuations, or is this kind of like a one and done kind of quality where the time and effort put into the AI usage of the tool is less? And then finally, I'll say, not only for client in-house outside counsel issues, you also have a generational thing going on too across people picking this up. Some users just don't want to touch AI at all, and it's very difficult to get them to adopt any AI tool, much less, when you add, the complexities of patent prosecution on top of that. And then, my final comment is not only generational, but also across technical areas. As I mentioned, I have a computer science degree. And so, using AI tools, and getting efficiencies and making them work well is kind of fun for me, quite honestly, because that's kind of my background and wheelhouse. But if I was to speak to folks in the biotech space, they just happen to be less likely or less excited on average to use it. So I think I think there were an interesting point in time for these tools to come out. Who adopts them? There's going to be extremely fast adopters and later ones, and how these tools get used.
So I will share the results. I got some thoughts there just to pick up while you all are taking a look at here the results. Overwhelmingly, quality ran away with this. In an almost surprising way to me. I will ask you guys here in a minute whether this surprises you at all or not. But the thing that always struck me about writing code and patent practice in general, the overlap is getting to 80% solution takes probably about 20% of the time. It is, Brian puts it, that last mile, that last 20% can take 80%, sometimes more of the overall time. So when you were saying, and this came up in my mind when you were talking about, the junior, these coding tools get you to a junior coder. My God, when I was a junior coder, nobody would have wanted to use anything that I was actually writing at that moment in time without it having been reviewed by somebody who really, knew what they were doing, right? And I think that's the same in patent practice. These tools are extremely powerful in the hands of a real person. You can do stuff that you otherwise really couldn't do. And make things so much better. It's good. So it's heartwarming to me to see that quality is where people are focusing on, because I think that's exactly where the key differentiator is right here today. Brian, I see you smiling, so I'll go to you first this time. Thoughts on this?
Yeah, no, I think it's great. It is heartwarming to see it. One of the interesting things I think I've realized about AI is that some of the gains are asymmetric. You would expect that there's this quality time balance that you can basically just drive wherever you want on the scale. But in reality, there are cases where AI is better at improving quality than it is on saving time. And I think that's just the fact that via this practice, there have been things that have been cut, right? As Eli mentioned, prices have not really risen in line with associate costs, with healthcare, even with inflation, right? We've been seeing prosecution costs largely flat over the last 15 years or so. And that has meant that most of the time, people that I work with are not proofreading every word of a 200-page draft application, right? They're not worried if some reference numeral on page 87 is slightly off. They know that that's not going to actually affect the rights of the patent. But with AI now, we can do that. I can go to a tool like DeepIP and I can have it scan the entire document for minor typos, for reference numerals being off. I can have it do a comparison of the disclosure documents and really fundamentally make sure that I've covered everything. Is this substantially complete? And so there are ways that I can then use that to get a better quality product, but I can't really take anything away. It's not as if I can not do that and save time. So there is an asymmetry there where luckily, and this seems to be aligned with people's preferences, AI is driving quality more than it's actually saving costs.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But let me just take a point of reference before we get too much deeper into the conversation. Point of order, probably rather, is what I meant to say. We have a Q&A box for you all. We have a chat box. If you want to chat amongst yourselves, I see you're already starting to do that. Please go ahead and do that. We also have a couple people from DeepIP monitoring the chat box. We have Eleanor and Cami. So if you have a very specific question that you would like to know about how DeepIP handles this, or that sort of thing, please feel free to put that into the chat box. If you have questions for the panel, you can put that into the Q&A box. I'll be more following the Q&A box because the chat box sometimes gets a little bit hairy. So, but have at it, everyone. So let me kick it back to you, FX at this moment to get your take on this poll question where, like 85+% it looked like said quality is where their focus is. Did that surprise you?
I think it does reflect the feedback we get from our clients. The main benefits our clients see is definitely an increase in quality. What the poll doesn't reflect potentially as much as what we hear from our clients is what people do with the time saved. So basically, we see that people value the fact of saving time, and there is definitely an arbitration done, usually at the firm level or at the individual level, to reallocate that time into doing a better job or doing more applications. And I think this reflects, it brings us back to what do we want to do with the technology. And so, yes, if you take an office action or a drafting application, on average, you can save, I don't know, 20, 25, 30%, whatever is the figure. The question is, as a firm or as an individual, what do I want to do with this time saving? Do I want to deliver more value to my clients and do a more robust application, more defendable, more litigation prepared? Or do I want to do same quality but at a cheaper cost? And so I'm not surprised. I think, and it's really good to see that. And I think this is what we want to do. Our mission is to help do better patents faster, and I think better comes first, and it's not for nothing. And but what I want to highlight is that we are at a time where it's obvious that the transformation is happening, and so there is very interesting discussions to have between clients and councils on what are our shared objectives. What do we want to achieve with the technology? Where do we set the budget? How much time? What is the quality level you expect? To really strategize and build together, leveraging the technology as a way to better align on these objectives and to deliver the final success as defined by both parties.
Mm-hmm. So I think we need to pivot into the conversation here about client expectations here, because we got a robust conversation I'm seeing in the chat here, and it seems that there is this belief by outside counsel that using AI tools mean that you only need 10% of the time that you did prior to using AI tools. So the example is given that if it took you 25 hours to do something, now with AI, it should really only take you 3 hours. And we have somebody else saying that outside counsel took 5 hours to do something that it took him 20 minutes to do in-house. Now,
perhaps I can share the figures we collect regularly from our clients to add an element on that if you want, Gene.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess what say you, Eli? Let me go to you first, and Ryan, I'll ask you the same question here. I mean, are those expectations realistic?
Yeah. So I think different examples, you could always kind of come up with situations where AI works really well. The one thing I guess about related to this poll also that I guess I'm not surprised quality is the top one. And the reason I think people are drawn to that is because they have a lot of experiences where they use AI tools and they are disappointed with the results. And then they're like, oh, I'm actually wasting time. So if I think everybody's reaction is, I want to use a tool that at least has predictable, reliable results, that I know what I'm getting and I'm not just wasting time. So I think there are situations where you'll find you'll use AI and gives you really good results. Maybe 20 minutes seems like I don't know how you'd have a chance to verify you're getting really good results, but let's assume that's the case. Uh, but I'm sure you'll come across other situations where um, AI doesn't give you what you want in the first place, and it will take you time to fix it. So, at least from my experience, and I've been testing these tools from I think the week after ChatGPT has come out. I think I've been testing these tools, so I've seen they definitely improve. But even till today, I think you want. I don't think it's I don't think it's a realistic expectation where instead of 5 hours, 20 minutes. And if somebody's telling you 20 minutes, then I guess I would kind of, I would want to, please contact me directly. And I want to do this test with you, and I'm curious to see it myself. So
yeah, and and the person in the chat who was saying that, who says what they do is they'll get the output from AI and however length of time, and then they go and take that and give that to an outside counsel and have the outside counsel review it. Now, I have a lot of experience, like unusually large amount of experience in this particular space, because over the years, when I was doing patent practice, I was trying to help independent inventors, right? And trying to give them a good service, and this review service, right? Now, it may seem like you can put an application in front of somebody that's been drafted and said, hey, I want to pay you 20 minutes, 30 minutes, even an hour to review this to make sure everything is okay. Well, you can do that, but if you're going to pay me a half hour to do that, then you're going to get a half hour of time. Now, I'm sure I can make it better in that length of time, but is it correct? I have no idea. I haven't, in that length of time, had any ability to look at the prior art. I haven't had really any ability to understand what the invention is. So I can proofread what you've given me and make sure you're not making any really bad mistakes, any characterizations using terms that we know the Federal Circuit doesn't like, for example. I can also tell when there's big pieces that are missing, or if it's in an area where I have spent a lot of time working, I can know or have a pretty good idea that, well, that's not going to work. This may work. That's not going to work like that. There's something missing between here and A and C. You need to explain B because it won't work. It doesn't make any sense. Now, you can do that kind of level of polishing very quickly, but that's a totally different level than it is to actually understand. And I always used to explain to clients, it's the difference between if you go to a financial company and you need your books audited. Okay, well, if you need your books audited and you want their stamp on it so that you're going to be able to provide this to investors or regulators, well, then that's a different level of audit. Where if you want them to audit for your own internal purposes and they don't have to put their stamp of approval on it and incur all kinds of liability, that's a wholly different level of audit, right? And so all these things, as Eli said, are context driven, I think.
Can I just want to add one thing, I guess.
Sure.
On the other side, I think like tests like that, I recommend everybody to directly use the tools, because that's the way you'll get appreciation for what they actually do, and not just rely on somebody else telling you. Because if somebody doesn't want to embrace the tools, they're not going to have a good experience with it. Versus, like Ryan said, while others who do want to embrace it will have the best possible experience. So I really recommend, if you're a partner or you're in-house counsel, I think that's a great idea to directly use the tools and see what they're actually doing, watch them do it, and then you kind of, then you'll know.
Yeah, no, I agree. So now, Ryan, I want to come back to you because this came up in the Q&A as well, and I think it was very relevant to what we're talking about here now. And it came up during our pre-call, and we all had ideas. So if anybody has ideas on this, chime in. I'll give Ryan you the first crack. AI is giving people now, the problem we always used to have is you get 1 or 2 sentences and now you got to turn that into a 100-page application, right? Now you're getting a 100-page disclosure and you've got to figure out, okay, well, what are the 1 or 2 sentences that actually captures the innovation? And so there's a challenge there. I mean, so as AI tools are being used by in-house folks, it's not just a trade-off. It's not like you are going to be spending less time. There's just voluminous amounts of information that are coming. So if you could speak about that, and then the other thing is to just always keep in mind, these tools are not free. I think that they provide really good value, but that does account for some of the savings that you want. Is the outside counsel has to use acquire these tools. So I don't know that it's a one-to-one. I think, or maybe it is one-to-one. I think like if you were spending 20 hours beforehand, you probably should be spending 20 hours now. And even with AI, for a variety of reasons, and not the least of which, and I'll stop talking here, is if you want to keep this patent, if it's litigated with the federal circuit, all they ever want is more and more and more and more. Now, you can't just have gobbledygook just to fill in this extra space. You got to make sure that that more actually tells the story and is correct. Ryan.
Yeah, absolutely, Gene. There's a term out there in the AI space called AI slop, and AI tools are really, really, really good at generating AI slop. And that, all of the AI tools, even in the patent space, are, they all sit on top of these foundational models, whether it's Claude or ChatGPT or whatever it may be. And so, with respect to getting invention disclosures or even the actual specification itself, they can get quite lengthy if you don't control for that. And the disclosures themselves can be, either wrong with a lot of hallucinations if they're very lengthy, or if they're very lengthy, you can generate like a 400 paragraph, application for a very simple, 20 claim spec, for example. And that you have to think about that because if you're going to file that patent foreign, then it's going to be significant fees for the length. Perhaps there's a lot of figures involved, so you got to control for that. And a lot of the AI output can quite frankly just be either superfluous, like it's just redundant to what has already been output by the tool, or it can be wrong, so you have to check for that. So going to the AI tool side of things, I think that's right. I mean, I think some in-house counsel, obviously, I would expect that those on this call are probably more skewed towards AI users because they've joined this call, they're interested in this topic. But there are, for every gung-ho AI user out there, that's in-house counsel, maybe there's some that don't want to use AI. And the analogy I like to give is that anybody can go to the hardware store and buy a hammer, but it doesn't necessarily mean you want to build a house with it, right? Maybe you want to hire somebody else to use that hammer to build the house. And so it gets interesting too, Gene, with your point with respect to the tools themselves. Yes, there's costs involved in paying for these tools or getting licensing fees, but there's also a lot of value in setting up these tools correctly. To your point about the federal circuit and what it wants to see in patent applications to survive, I can just talk about Section 101 alone, and most people on this call will understand what I mean. You certainly want to put into your patent application, especially for certain inventions, different parts of Section 101 that will make your patent survivable, especially for software patents or biotech, which I work on. You want to say certain things in your specification so you can meet the 3-part Federal Circuit test, as outlaid in Core Wireless. You're trying to describe the problem, describe a solution technically, and then also show that technical solution is part of the claims. AI tools don't naturally generate these, but as a practitioner, myself, and I imagine those, my fellow panelists have, I have built in instructions into my AI tool that I use quite regularly to make sure that each one of my clients' patents, get that vital Section 101 treatment. Because quite honestly, at the prosecution level, that could be the thing that saves your patent from being not rejected constantly under 101, get you a faster allowance, and then going to litigation, it makes it a litigation quality patent because you can survive that 12B6 motion to dismiss for failure to for having a patent ineligible idea. And so we want to build that quality all the way through, and that doesn't happen unless you're cognizant of what you're going for, like the end game. You have a telescope on the long view of that patent and making sure that it has quality.
So I maybe didn't realize just how much of a divergent idea of the capabilities of AI existed based on what I'm seeing in the Q&A and what I'm seeing in the chat, and one to pick up on this is like, well, if it takes 20 minutes to create the application with AI, and it only takes 2 to 3 hours of attorney review time to review that, and it would have taken 15 hours in the past to do the whole project. I mean, I just disregard the entire premise of that. I mean, there's no way you can do if it took you 15 hours start to finish to create it. You can't in 2 to 3 hours review an application that an AI generated in 20 minutes. It's not possible. Not if quality matters to you. Now, if what it is if it's a C-level, and when everybody's got C-level patents, right? Nobody likes to admit it probably, but you file a lot of stuff that at the time you're filing it really probably doesn't have a lot of legs. You're filing, maybe it's the CEO's pet project, maybe the CEO is the inventor, maybe somebody's retiring, maybe, maybe, right? So if it's your C patents, fine, have at it. But if it's something that matters, because let's remember, examiners, even in fishing lures and vermin control, which is actually an art unit, those examiners in that kind of low tech area are going to get 12 to 15 hours to do their entire work, to do the search, review the application, do the office actions going back and forth and figure out all the rejections and everything. And on top of that, what else we know about examiners? They only focus on usually the main drawing or two and the claims. They don't read the specification. Well, the whole point of reviewing this is the spec, right? And the claims too, but the claims, you got to make sure you have support. There's a whole lot of stuff that an examiner is never going to do that your attorney during that 2 to 3 hour review is supposed to do. And examiners get now 5 to 6 lengths of time to do that. There's a real disconnect. Brian, I see you shaking your head. It seems like, I mean, I guess I thought in-house counsel maybe understood more about what we do on the outside.
Well, first I'll say that building a better mousetrap is like the archetypical invention. So don't, go down on vermin removal.
Oh no, and I think by the way, that's a great area that people need to catch pests, and if their hobby is fishing and stuff like that, they've always got money for their hobby. It's a great area to innovate in.
But the broader point, if people are drafting applications in 20 minutes, first, I want that tool, right? I could be so much more efficient. I'd be golfing rather than sitting here in my office today. It's not what I have seen. And I think that one of the key risks that I see with AI, and people that are deep in this have seen it too, AI is very good at producing work quality that seems competent. It's very confident. It's very convincing. This is a recurring problem. And I hope I'm not being dismissive here when I say that I hope in-house counsel have had trusted partners where if they're getting polished work quality, it's also high quality work. AI can produce polished work that is not actually high quality. When you start to dig in, has a ton of holes, right? This is what Ryan was saying. When I get disclosures from inventors that take a small idea and then ask AI to expand on it, it takes a lot of time to dig through what is frankly AI slop to get to the heart of it. And I see we have a question in the chat about, does this AI capability not exacerbate the commodification of effective patent work? These go together. I don't think that the sweet spot of AI is actually my work. I don't think that the value that I bring to clients is something that AI is good at. It's not good at understanding, as you said, the story. I'm big on the story of the invention. AI often doesn't get that quite right. It's not good at looking at the 101 aspect. It's not good at looking at the case law, looking at what the Federal Circuit needs. What it does is it makes my time able to focus more on that. I don't have to worry about listening to a disclosure call. I can have the AI transcribe it. I don't have to worry about taking this thought and putting it into pretty language. I can bullet point that out, and then DeepIP or another tool can put that into my style of work. but the value is still coming from the legal expertise. And I think even the people in the chat that are arguing for hugely reduced prices recognize that strategic partnership of outside counsel is where the value really is. And so, look, to the extent that there are people out there that are spending 5 hours drafting a formulaic response that doesn't have real content, that is a problem. We're going to see that drop. We're going to see efficiencies gain there. But a patent application by its nature is novel and new and interesting, and I'm never going to trust AI to get that story correct.
Yeah. There's so much here. This is such a, fascinating conversation, and FX, maybe bring you into it here because, as the founder here and creator of this tool, it'd be interesting to get your take on where you think the optimal use case is today. And I'll give you a moment to kind of think about your answer to that. What I will say is I think for a moment here we've kind of gotten into this. Well, do they draft it in house and spend however much time drafting? For sake, just say math is easy, an hour, and then they want to kick it out to the outside counsel and say, okay, you got 3 to 4 hours to review this, and then we're gonna file it. I would think it would be possible to get, maybe not now, but eventually get that kind of level of streamlining done if the person who is creating the draft using AI is then also the one who goes and is reviewing it and polishing it, because you were interrogating the AI, you were prompting the AI, you were pushing it, what you gave it, what it gave you back, whether it was accurate, not quite accurate, needed to be fine-tuned. I think if you have a master chef cooking the meal, the whole meal tastes better. And I think the master chef here is the patent attorney who's driving the AI by using it. What say you, FX?
I think the discussion is the tension that reflects the discussion between outside counsel and in-house counsels is very interesting, because for me it's a translation of a kind of fear, so there is a deep mutation in the space. I think no one can deny that there is time saving. One of the key benefits is definitely quality. And I could not agree more than with what you shared, Brian, Eli, and Ryan, on your operational and day-to-day feedback. Coming to your question, Gene, so patent work is incremental. And today there are huge silos, which are reflected by what you shared, all of you. The engineer is inventing, preparing a disclosure, today a long one with AI, handing it over to the IP counsel that will select to actually patent this one, which will be handed over to the outside counsel that will start working on it. And so if you take each of these steps as a silo done by someone who has to learn about what has been decided before, so everyone has to restart from scratch. And the way we see tools facilitating and delivering more value across the value chain is to be a bridge. So we believe in a tool where R&D can work and build context, where in-house IP teams can select and build incremental context to this initial disclosure, which will be handed over to the outside counsel with the rest of the context. And all of that across the prosecution step up to the pruning of this tool. So we believe that there is a huge value, not on each use case, but by aggregating the incremental history of this invention from its very emergence to its death. And so this is a bit the vision we have at DeepIP, and this is what we are building. It's going beyond the silos and delivering value wherever AI can deliver value, trying to make everyone more efficient at every step and deliver what makes its true value. And I think, Brian, you've been very clear on what is the true value of the attorney. It's not doing what AI is capable to do rapidly.
Yeah. Eli, I want to bring you in here because I know you've been an early adopter here, and also I know your technical background a bit here. I'd like you to pick up our comment on what FX was just saying about the silos, and maybe the new piece to introduce here is this idea that what I think, and I'd like to get your thoughts and comments on this. What I think is extremely valuable about these tools is it does allow someone, a senior person like yourself or Ryan or Brian, to be involved in each of these compartments from the get-go and really drive the entire process, where you don't necessarily have to rely on, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, we were talking about sending these things out to India to get the drafts done and get them back. And quality sometimes is good, sometimes wasn't good. But you, as the senior partner, can drive this from the very beginning. That's what I see is special. What do you think, Eli?
Yeah, I think kind of the people on this call are kind of fortunate that we were experienced patent attorneys when these tools came about. So now when we use them, we know the technology, we know what we want the patent application to look like. And when we use the tools, we can quickly adopt. I think the bigger challenge is, and I saw somebody ask a question about leverage, is really about how do you train junior attorneys or actually new attorneys or new agents to use the AI in a way which actually is productive and doesn't generate what Ryan called AI slop. And I think, the best AI tools that I've seen, I guess, even for senior attorneys, are the ones that I think affects it incremental across the board, but even for an application to force whoever's using the tool to think through everything that they're doing. So make sure you're discreetly using the tool for different sections of the application and that you're not just, outputting an application, what Brian might say. So like it just looks good, and to a junior attorney, you're like, well, it's better than anything I could have written. And so, all right, let me just pass it along. So I think like I think it is kind of we're fortunate that sometimes, as much as I've stopped myself, but sometimes it is faster for me to use an AI tool than it is to ask a junior attorney because it generates it and then I know how to quickly fix it and so forth. So I think that is, but I think that is like a ongoing question and challenge that I guess I'm still
Yeah.
going to learn more about. Yeah.
Absolutely, very interesting. And Ken put it very well in the Q&A here. AI causes me to increase my marination and rumination with the content of the client's disclosure. And I think that is absolutely the reason that the quality is so enhanced is because you get this real brainstorming. You get to think about it deeper because the actual physically writing it up and down. I mean, like you're saying, Brian, you could take these bullet points and stuff that you've cut together from phone calls and your own stream of consciousness. And the AI is very good at putting that into context, right? Now that you've got that into context very quickly, now you can dive deeper and you can polish here and change there, add there. And it gives the skilled attorney a lot more time to actually layer on what you want to be paying for, which is their expertise. So we've gotten all the way to the end here. It's hard to believe this hour went as quickly as it did. I got a poll question up about anybody who would like to try free access to DeepIP. Please answer the poll question, and we'll make sure we get you that access. But gentlemen, I'd like in rapid fire, if we can, to give each of you your final thought. And Eli, since you went last, the first round, I'll give you first dibs here, and we'll have FX batting cleanup with the final word. But Eli, what say you?
Yeah, I guess, I'll circle back to I encourage everybody on this call, and I'm sure a lot already, to use these tools and to use them firsthand and see what they can do. I think, just as a suggestion, even if you don't have it available, one of these specialized tools, one of the is continuation claims, because you already have a defined application. And if you have an example of a lot of claims that you know what they look like, and AI or LLM platform has something to work with. So I think that's a good use case. I would encourage everybody to start using that, and then you could really have that conversation and figure out kind of how you want your asset counsel to leverage that, and how you want to demonstrate that value to in-house counsel if you're outside.
I think that's a great idea. That's a great suggestion, Eli. You know, it gives us everybody a place to start with something you're already comfortable with. Hopefully, you're comfortable with the continuation. All right. Thanks a lot, Eli. Brian, your takeaway message.
Yeah, I want to echo what you said earlier. It's just interesting that there's such a divergence in the chat and comments here about expectations. And as I said, I'm an AI optimist. I think the future is bright. I think the pie is going to grow for everyone. The first step to getting there is coming to an understanding of what these tools actually can do in practice. So thank you, everyone, for having this conversation. I would encourage anyone who's in-house, talk to their outside counsel about use of these tools, about what we are seeing. Outside counsel, talk to in-house counsel, make sure expectations become aligned, because until we have a level of understanding that's shared among us, we really can't reach those efficiencies that I do think will come.
Absolutely. And conversations like today, I think are, I don't think it got heated. It got passionate, and that's great. We got to have these conversations. So thanks, Brian. Ryan, your takeaway.
Yeah, I'll use my time to address a comment that I saw come up at least multiple times in the chat, and that's like, hey, should we be using these tools to draft claims? And that's a very important conversation that you need to have, in-house with engineers and with outside counsel. And we have seen the USPTO kind of go back and forth on this issue. At first, they said it was going to be a joint inventorship issue. Like if the AI drafted the claims, then you better have some kind of human touch to that, human contribution. Otherwise, you could fall under the Thaler decision that your code is, or your claims are not patent eligible, or I'm sorry, they're just not patentable at all because there's no inventor. So I suspect, I do litigation as well, so I suspect on deposition transcripts going forward in the future, trial transcripts going forward in the future, that's going to be a question for litigators. They're going to ask, hey, did you use any AI tools to generate your claims? And I suspect the inventor, engineer, or what have you is going to want to say, yeah, I used AI to help generate this thought, but at least some of this is mine. Because we don't know yet where the Federal Circuit or Supreme Court, if they ever touch this issue, is going to go with respect to inventorship. And you're going to want to have your inventors be able to say, under penalty of perjury, that they contributed to the conception of the claim invention, which is the legal test, as we know, for inventorship. So I think it's very dangerous to have an inventor wholly generate a claim set from nothing and then submit that as the invention. So I always recommend to have some portion of that claim set to be touched by the inventor, some kind of contribution. So hopefully that helps the chat.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm rolling my eyes because just the thought when you planted in my head, I wish you hadn't, that what is the Federal Circuit going to do when they address this? It's like, oh my God, they could actually really do what we all fear that they could do, right? But hopefully cooler heads will prevail. Hopefully they will take a step back and start to understand before they start jumping. But thanks a lot, Ryan. Appreciate you being here. And FX, the final word goes to you today.
Thank you, Gene. But so I shared, I don't believe in the winner-loser, fear. I think there is a major shift in value. There will be a reconfiguration. And so the cost of inaction, the cost of not getting your hand dirty and deeply understanding what it does, what it don't, and how it might reconfigure your relationship with your counsel or with your clients is huge. So get started as deeply as possible. And I would say, don't underestimate how deeply it will reconfigure everything. And so think it not as a tool but as a transformative mutation of the paradigm in the domain, and rethink your operating model, rethink the way you charge your client or the way you get billed, rethink the way you operate to make sure you get the most benefits of the technology.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you very much, panel. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much to everyone in the audience. Great conversation. Much more to be said before we come to some understanding as an industry, I think, and we will continue to try and push that conversation forward. But that's all we have for today for now. So we'll see you all soon. Bye for now, everybody.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.